Tolentino, and I lived my Cursillo in February 1994 at Salesian High School in Richmond, California. I belong to the Decuria of St. James.
Yeah!
My Cursillo number is 49. Niners. And before I begin, let me tell you this. If you want to talk to God, pray. If you want to listen to God, meditate. If you want God to laugh, tell Him your plans.
Very true.
Okay. Anyway, how many of you are here who's delivering the Rollo for the first time? First time, two, great. Back in our sharing, is that one of the questions you're worried about? How you would deliver the Rollo? Well, I was just gonna say, don't worry. Your rector already took care of that. That's why I'm here again. This is, I did those of you who were here during the commissioning and orientation, I did the presentation that time. But this time, this is the extended version. Because last time I didn't have enough time to go through the whole thing. So we're doing it a little slower and extended, okay? So this is what we call preparing and delivering the Rollo. For those of you who are serving for the first time, it's best that if you're not even giving the Rollo, pay attention now, because next year, one of you or all of you might be delivering the Rollo. So, I guess I better. So as you know, in public speaking, there are 5 different kinds of talks. What happened?
I don't know, maybe I have to move my PC all the time.
Nasa ano, power ano.
No, screensaver.
Screensaver. Power saving siya.
Okay, thank you.
Probably have to sit down here.
Yeah.
It means something that, you know.
Okay, going back to what I was saying, as you know, in public speaking, there are 5 different kinds of talks depending on what your goal is. There is a talk to stimulate, there's a talk to inform, there's a talk to persuade, and there's a talk to activate, and a talk to entertain. So what is a Rollo? We know that Rollo is a talk. Okay? A talk is the English word for the Spanish word rollo. So what is a rollo? It's a talk. Now, is it in any one of those 5 talks I just mentioned?
Yeah.
It's all of the above. Okay? So there is all 5 different kinds of public speaking talks are incorporated as one in this what we call the Rollo. In the Cursillo, we call the Rollo a Cursillo talk. Okay. Before we go to that, this is the outline of the talk. Where's my stick? I already see some heads popping. As you see, the outline is divided into 3 parts. Preparing the Rollo on the first, where we define what is a Rollo and what is the progression of the Rollo things to consider in a rodeo and suggestions on preparing a witness rodeo. And then after all this, you have writing the rodeo. Then on the second topic is the delivery part. In delivering the rodeo, we have to know the preparation of the climate, then the tone and style of the rodeo, and then audiovisual aids, effective communication, and then the talk itself, the delivery. And then in the closing, we have the duration of the rodeo, rules in ending your talk, and then, of course, the conclusion. So what is a rodeo? As I mentioned earlier, a rodeo is a talk. It is the English word for the Spanish word rodeo. So rodeo is a talk. Now, why do we say it has a style of its own? Because it is full of the speaker's personality and life experiences geared to bring listeners to a state of desiring to do likewise. And there are two kinds of rodeos. Anybody guess what are the two kinds of rodeos?
The witness rodeo.
That's part of the second one. Well, yeah, it is correct. We have the spiritual rodeo, which is given by the spiritual advisors, and then the layperson rodeo, which is given by us, the laypersons. Okay, and then the one you said, the witness rodeo, is part of the layperson's rodeo. So what is a rodeo? A rodeo is also a joyful proclamation of truths lived in the lives of the speakers. And who are these speakers? The spiritual advisors and the laypersons. That's us. A joyful proclamation of truths that have been lived in the lives of the speakers, whether given by priests, deacons, vowed religious, or laity. But it should be both doctrinally sound and a living witness of those proclaiming it. A rodeo is also one message. It is one message divided into many parts. Each rodeo is a necessary part within the whole of the Cursillo because they contain the doctrinal body of the Cursillo. Their contents outlines what is necessary for living, what is fundamental for being a Christian. What is fundamental for being a Christian? Anybody? It is to live out our love for God through a relationship with self, others, and Christ. Now, all the rodeos are interrelated. And this is what we call the progression of the rodeo. In order to better understand the way rodeos work together, it is necessary to consider them first as a whole. This is the whole weekend. So this is one rodeo. Okay? And then second, individually, we have to consider them individually with their own specific messages. So, in your entire 3-day weekend, we begin what we call the first evening, which is the preliminary rodeo. What is that? That is the Rollo about introduction and instruction to be given by your rector. Okay? This is the time when Cursillo begins with the instructions and the introduction of all the servers, and then we start what we call the retreat. The objective of the spiritual retreat is to awaken the moral consciences of the candidates, beginning with the analysis of their own lives and causing them to desire to encounter God. So, on the first evening, we had that introduction instructions, and then we begin the evening with the first meditation to be given by the spiritual advisor. It's know yourself. It used to be what we call know thyself, right? Now this will be given by the spiritual advisor, telling you how you are. This is how you are before the Cursillo. And then we have the prodigal son, which talks about how Christ is. And then we go to the next day, the first day of the weekend. We start the first day with the 3 glances. It's how Christ sees you. And then we go to the first Rollo for the lay person. It's called ideal. Ideal is telling us man can be more and better. And what is habitual grace? That's to be given by your spiritual advisor. God's desire to call us into friendship with Him. Then that's followed by a lay person in the church to be a living testimony of the gospel in daily life. And then followed by actual grace, which is God's graces are available to us and within our reach. And the last Rollo of the first day is the piety. It is a life of grace, the life of Christ in us. Then we move on to the second day, the person of Christ. This is a meditation given by your spiritual advisor on how you should see the person of Christ. Then it's followed by study. That's a layperson Rollo. Study is the need for us to explain the reality of God and humanity. And then we have the sacraments. Sacraments divided in 2 parts to be given by the spiritual advisors. And the sacraments are presented in a special way through which Jesus' sacred humanity continues to be operative in the world today. And then the next Rollo after that is action. What is action? Apostolic action. An expression of our desire to share God's love among our fellow brothers and sisters. Then we go to the obstacles to a life of grace. What's the obstacles to a life of grace? Sin. Sin, living the life of grace is hampered by sin. So what do we need to do? We'll follow the Rollo. The last Rollo of the day is leaders. Those who heard the call of the Lord and acted to help the Christian transformation of society. And then on the third day, another meditation. Christ's message to the Cursillista. This is telling you how Christ loves you. and then followed by study of the environment, to develop a plan and make a difference to influence the different environments. And then life in grace, another Rollo by the spiritual advisor. This will talk about ongoing spiritual growth within the Cursillo and their environment. And then we have Christianity in action, explain how to be Christians in acts and deeds. And then we have the Cursillo beyond the Cursillo. Tells what the Cursillistas is to be, what they have, what they know, and how to be able to Christianize their environments. And then we have total security. It gives the Cursillistas a sense of security as a means by which the conversion process grows, deepen, and progress within our lives. So that is the summary. This is one Rollo divided into many parts. Each week, each day is a different message. The first day, all these Rollos are interrelated, giving you a message about the encounter with your own self. It is a presentation of life of grace, that which is fundamental for the Christian life, the direction of one's whole life to God. And then the second day, the message of the second day is the encounter with Jesus Christ. It explains what each person must do to be Christian or to be Christ-like. And then on the third day, the whole message of the third day is the encounter with others. It is a call to the apostolate, to be Christ for others as Christ is for us. Okay. Now we go to preparing the Rollo. And this is very important. This is what you should consider. Now this is the time when you already know that you are giving a Rollo. Okay? The rector just assigned you. Hey, can you give this Rollo for us? So this is what you will consider. You don't have to worry. First and foremost, ask the Lord. Okay? You pray. Ask the Lord for wisdom and guidance. And then you review the outline several times with other literature relating to the topic. What literature are we talking about? This is the Cursillo manual. This is a manual for the weekend containing all the different Rollos that you will have to encounter. It will explain, it will give you examples, it will give you an outline. So your Rollo will be already given a map, your guide to follow. And the rest of it is filling the blanks, okay? You have to incorporate your, what we call the witness talk. That's when you have to add in what is this Rollo you're talking about affecting your life, or use your life as an example. Okay, so once you get that outline, you prepare the major points of the Rollo. Okay, what do you need to consider to put in that outline? And then, of course, consider what witness can be given that is appropriate to the Rollo. Request palanca from your group as you prepare your Rollo. Now that is a Cursillo jargon, palanca. I'm sure first-time servers, you've heard that when you were a candidate. But do you exactly know what it means? It is a spanner, okay? Just as a lever enables you to move something which is beyond your normal strength. Palanca is the same thing. It empowers you to the accomplishments of things which normally you wouldn't be able to accomplish. And that is possible only through God's will, God's power. And what you do is to pray and ask God for help. And that is exactly palanca. What it means is they are asking, or your community will offer a palanca for you to help you get through your Rollo and whatever else you need to do. Ayaw mag-hoop.
Dito.
Oh. Ayan. Next.
Sobra.
Should not.
Sobrang isa no?
Oh, yes, yes.
Sa taas.
5, 6.
Tapos na dyan, di ba?
Take out number 7.
Yeah.
Ay, shit, nasira na ata.
Don't press enter, otherwise you can keep adding the blank one.
Press enter, keep adding me something. Di ba yung what purpose suggestion?
Yeah, should not do. Yeah, that's the word.
That's it, number 2, okay. Nawala ata 6 ko ata. I added.
Okay. I-click mo na lang pagkatapos.
Okay.
Now, the next suggestion on preparing your witness Rollo. First, emphasize how bad you, we should say not. Do not emphasize how bad you used to be. Okay? You don't have to tell them your life story like before, let's say, you know, you've been wanted by the Lord. You don't need to worry about that. Okay? You don't have to speak in glittering generalities. Glittering generalities. Mention the other denominations. Do not criticize other churches or other religions. Do not give the impression that Christian life is a bed of roses. Self-explanatory, okay? Do not preach. You don't tell others how to live their lives. It's like preaching to the choir. Do not argue or use other high-pressure methods of getting a decision for Christ. Hopefully, none of you attended the weekend because your sister-in-law said, no, come on, you have to go, even if you don't want to. Okay, that's like pressuring methods. Do not reveal the identity of people in the witness talk unless with permission. Okay? It's just saying, you don't have to say, oh, my brother John was a drug addict. You don't have to use those kind of terms. You can just talk about the person without mentioning names. Sige, ano susunod? Okay, once you've got all the information, then you go to writing the Rollo. When you're familiar with the outline, then it's time to write the Rollo. Sample outlines and sample Rollos. Like I mentioned earlier, this is the book for it. Okay? The outlines are based on their contents and allow a degree of flexibility. They made it that way so you can just incorporate your personal experiences and your personal messages. They are intended to provide the message for the candidates and are intended to give direction to the rulista. It is important to adhere to the progression and content with each outline. The sample Rollo is not intended to be used as the Rollo itself. It's just a guide, okay?
Maguna.
Oh.
Number 2.
So when familiar with the outline and the witness to be used, then go ahead and write the Rollo. And while you're writing it, these are some hints to consider. Work on the Rollo early in the team formation. What do we mean by that? You don't prepare your Rollo if your Rollo is to be given next week. Okay? Because it's hard to leave a Rollo when you just got the information yesterday. Okay. Be clear. There is no instant replay in the Rollos. And you have to be clear when you're moving from one topic to another. Next, you use repetition to emphasize key points. You don't have to worry about repeating, like going back and say, oh yeah, you know, first, let me tell you what I told you earlier, and then you summarize it or give you the supporting words about it. Use transitional words and phrases to connect. For example, you say first the good news, and then followed by next the bad news. Choose only words normally heard in conversations. So that means avoid words like nomenclature. Okay? When you're just saying name, instead of saying nomenclature, you just say name instead. Or you can say, I was fired, instead of the word terminated. Just use relatively short sentences. You don't have to use flowery words that sometimes it's hard to understand. Don't use lengthy quotation. Sometimes when you quote from the Bible, it's hard to quote the entire verse. You just kind of paraphrase it, because sometimes when you quote, sometimes people don't know where you end your quote and you begin your words again, your sentences. Let's see. Yeah, in summary, keep it brief, simple, and precise. Next. Once you have written your Rollo, it's time to practice. What we call it, the rehearsal. After the Rollo has been written, it should be shared with someone else who can comment on it. I'm sure all of you have mentors, right? That's the time to use them. Recite your Rollo in front of them so they can give you comments or advice or critique your Rollo. By giving the Rollo several times, the rulista should become comfortable and more familiar with it. Like they say, as the saying goes, practice makes perfect. Okay, and then very important, during the Cursillo, during the weekend, as you are delivering your Rollo, the rollista should be especially attentive to the Rollos that come before and try to tie it in reference to them. Like for example, Brother Vic did the Rollo on study. Then you can tie your Rollo, like you can mention, as Brother Vic mentioned earlier this morning, that study is such and such and such, which it doesn't have to be. That's just an example. Okay? Make sure to give relevance to the previous Rollo. That's how it is interrelated. That's what you should do. Now, in delivering the Rollo, preparation of the climate, this is before you go and deliver your Rollo. Some brothers occasionally open up with a song or hymn before a Rollo to help create a relaxed atmosphere. And each Rollo should begin with a prayer to the Holy Spirit. That's when you pull out your Pilgrim's Guide, right? And then you start the prayer. Always pray before you start your Rollo. Next. Now, also as we have here, audiovisual aid. This is what we have right now. This is an example of audiovisual aid. Of course, we also have the old way, which is a flip chart. These are devices for holding erect a multi-sheet of easel. Okay, we used to have that. And then you can also use graphs. It's the same rule as flip charts. And then we have the chalkboards. Okay, it's like a white blank board where you can write something on. But those were kind of like old-fashioned now, because in this modern age, our technology advances each day. So pretty much most of these are obsolete, except of course for the handouts that must not be given during the time of presentation. You know why? If you hand it out before your talk, then the candidates will just start reading it and forget about you standing in front talking. Cassette player, you used to play either a musical piece or some audio. Like if you're using some audios, you can play it on that. And then second, projected visual aids. Those like this one can get projected on a large screen. We also have overhead projectors where we used to do a transparency to project the image from that transparency. Slide projector, it uses 35mm slides to project images on the screen. And then we have presentation graphics projected from computers. This is what we have, the PowerPoint system. And then we have, of course, videotapes. Very effective since almost everybody has a DVD player at home. You can also do that as part of your presentation. Now we come to the effective communication, the verbal part, okay? The words spoken. This is when your grammars and tenses come in. If you're talking about the present, you cannot say, "Oh, I was there tomorrow." I'm here yesterday. Okay, and of course the voice. Do you use a microphone during the Rollos or no?
Some use, some don't.
Oh,
Depends on their voice.
Yeah. The voice, it's not that TV show, okay? main thing, if you don't have a microphone, you have to talk loud, project it loud and clear. But of course, if you have that
We have that.
microphone, then you can even walk around and talk to your candidates. It's good if you have that,
We have that.
yeah, you can walk around and wake up those sleeping. Anyway, we have the non-verbal part, the face. Of course, you know, sometimes during your witness talk, you can feel emotional. It's not embarrassing to cry if you are touched with your, if you are touched with the Spirit. You don't have to worry about communicating, okay, through your face. You can show your facial expressions and not worry about it. Of course, the eye, very important. You can make eye contacts. That's how you can see whose heads are bobbing down, up and down. The body, every movement is noticed, okay? Just like if you scratch your head or pick your nose, scratch your butt, that should be avoided, okay? Since we're just casual here, we can, you know, joke around about it. But when you're on the actual Rollo delivery, then nervousness sets in, so you have to be, that's why practice makes perfect. You have to keep practicing so you don't have to worry about those things. Okay, then we come to the talk. This is the actual delivery. This is when you're talking to your candidates. First thing and foremost, remember the Holy Spirit is always there with you. Okay? So as you pray your pilgrim's guide, come Holy Spirit, that is asking the Holy Spirit to guide you throughout the talk. And then there are also some hints, very helpful hints after that prayer. The most important thing is to be yourself. Don't pretend to be somebody else. Or don't borrow somebody's Rollo and deliver it as if it's your own. That's a no-no. Okay? You should write and give the Rollo according to your own personalities. Not like Brother Willie's personality, you're giving his Rollo and you're acting like you are Brother Willie. You should use language that is comfortable for you. Okay? Just plain English. You don't have to use high-sounding words. Just use your regular day-to-day conversation. You should project yourselves as you are. Confident or nervous. You can be nervous, it's okay. Because after a while, nervousness goes away and you are there being confident already. You should talk loud and clear in order to be heard. Of course, if there's a microphone, it's okay. You can talk soft. Smile often and make eye contact with the candidates. So in short, it's not essential to the Cursillo that those who give the Rollos are polished public speakers. Often it's the lack of polish that makes a Rollo real. Because we are trying to project that we are real persons, not somebody else, not a professional public speaker. So it's okay, we can make mistakes, but minimize your mistake if you can. And that's by practicing your Rollo, or you can use your spouses to deliver your Rollo and, you know, let her critique you. And then we come to the closing. The attention of the audience is the only effective rule to indicate the time for finishing the Rollo. Can get longer than we expected, okay? Especially when you're so emotional, you get carried away, then sometimes you lost your place, you forget where you were, and then you start going back. And that's just one thing to avoid. Finishing the Rollo, when the director gives you 40 minutes, try to finish it in 40 minutes. Don't go 50 or 1 hour, because that's how our 3-day weekends get 4 days, okay? It goes up to 4 days.
That's the end.
Almost the end.
Yeah, what's at the end? So I don't know. I picked something here.
Oh.
Picking my note.
Duration.
Yeah.
Okay. Rules in ending your talk. End on time. If you're allotted 25 minutes, end in 25 minutes. End with conviction. Don't end your talk with a statement like, "That's all I have to say to you this morning." You know, it makes you wonder. When you say you're ending it, then do it. So the best part of the talk is when you say, "In conclusion." Go ahead. Giving a Rollo on a Cursillo is different from most other types of speaking. The essential for giving a Rollo is to live it, but also it's very important to know it and have mastery of it. Giving a Rollo takes special kind of discipline, technique, and most importantly, humility. Okay? Before I close, let me tell you a joke, okay? So I can wake up the rest of you now. Time to laugh. This is it. This is the end. Okay? Let me tell you a story about a priest who accompanied a convict on death row. He is being walked to the this was the electric chair during that time. Anyway, the priest was contemplating to himself, I don't know what to say to this man. Should I say goodbye or should I say see you later? He's having a problem trying to figure out what to say. So anyway, until they got to the chamber, then the guy was seated and wrapped with all these wires, and then they put that thing on the head. And so the priest was ready to say goodbye, and he didn't know what to do. And then it's time for them to start the process. So, in a sense, all he did then is tap the guy's head and said, "More power to you." But then, not to be outwitted, the convict said, "Father, can you give me my last request?" "Oh, sure, I forgot, I'm sorry. Okay, what is your last request, my son?" "Father, I'm afraid to die. Please hold my hands until it's over." That's how he came back with. Anyway, that's your preparing and delivering the role.